All right. Let me turn off the lights. We'll get going here. We're going to start off today by just kind of revisiting the export procedure from Modo getting our models back into Unity. I downloaded some of the assets that I gave you guys a couple weeks ago with those historical buildings, and we're just going to use that as the foundation for our little conversation today, because I think it's going to give us a good opportunity to talk about some of the ideas and concepts that we need to look at today. Let me just get rid of all this stuff. All right, so here's that historical buildings asset bundle that I gave you guys. And if you look at it, let's just do, let's do the pagoda. There we go. There's our cool little Japanese pagoda. Awesome. Looking very nice and tasty. Let's just look at our grid for a second here and remind ourselves that the location of all of our assets is really important, right? It's critical. It's imperative that when we're exporting assets from Modo and getting them into Unity, we be very, very aware of their position within the scene, especially if this is going to be an element that we want to duplicate over in Unity, like a prop piece, like your wine barrel or your crate, or maybe one of the smaller prop pieces that you're going to be putting on the interior of your blacksmith shop or the rest of the little town that you're going to be creating for your final. Okay, having things at the origin of the scene is really neat. However, if you're going to be modeling and generating a much larger scene, like you guys are for your final project, this is a perfectly acceptable alternative. I want to import into this Luxology scene file another one of those mesh items. Let's do, the Pharaoh's building, and it's going to import in as a separate mesh item, which is cool. Now, I grabbed the entire scene, and I don't want that. I just want that mesh item. The rest of this mumbo jumbo I'm going to delete because it brought in that Luxology scenes files camera and all that stuff. Yes, I'll just get rid of it. So now if you look very carefully here, what I have is that I have two separate buildings. I have the Japanese pagoda and the Pharaoh's building just chilling at the exact same spot. We're going to pretend that these are two different buildings within your scene. This is acceptable, okay? We can have two different mesh items within our scene. It gives us a certain degree of control over in Unity too, because now we can individually position and place these objects where they need to be within our scene quickly, okay? So you can construct your entire little town over in Modo and send it out as one piece over into Unity, okay? Really good for buildings because positioning buildings inside of Modo is really easy. The spatial relationships and defining those spatial relationships is fast, it's easy, it's intuitive, it doesn't take a lot of brain power. Sometimes moving and positioning things in Unity can be a little bit of a pain in the butt. So doing it this way, we're not saving any polygons, it's just a workflow thing. Okay? All right, so let's export these pieces of geometry and get them over into Unity and start looking at how we can start playing with this. Now, walk me through what I need to do in my Unity scene, in my Modo scene file to prepare it for export. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Seth.
Start getting rid of stuff like the lights and cameras that you don't need.
You got it. Get rid of all the lights and cameras because those elements are going to make the trip over into Unity if they're still present within our item list. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of all the stuff that I don't need, and I would definitely recommend you make a new file of this. Okay, I want to put this on my desktop. I'm going to call this Pat's Oats Town. Pat's Town. And I always like to put something in here called like Unity, just so I know that this is the Luxology scene file that I have called, if you will, for preparation into Unity. So let me delete all this. Yes to all. I'm even going to go over to my my shader tree, and I'm going to nuke all of this stuff. Oh, you know what I should do first? I should put all of these polygons in their own material. That way, so this will be pagoda. All of this stuff. This is going to be, Pharaohs? Yeah, Pharaohs. Great. So I'm going to get rid of my base shader. I'm going to get rid of my render outputs. The only thing that I really want to see within inside of my shader tree is those material groups. One thing that I would like to recommend that you include in your production pipeline is deleting that base material. For the game art pipeline, nothing should be associated with that base material. Okay, everything should be segregated out into its own material group. Why? Why is that an important thing for us? It can get confusing, absolutely. So we're managing our media, we're being good stewards of our scene file. That's an important thing. Why else? Control, right? We want to be able to control with accuracy. If our polygons are separated out into a whole series of materials, we're going to gain that level of control. All right, so I'm happy with this. Let's just get it out. File export. What's my fave? What's my favorite file type? Collada. I like Collada, but you're more than welcome to use FBX as well. One of those two are always going to give you the result that you want. Personally, I go with Collada. It's, I think, a little bit more robust, and the results are definitely stronger. So let me export out a Collada file. There we go. And now let's jump over into Unity. There it is. It's just chilling somewhere on my desktop. There it is. There's my Collada file. So let's jump over into Unity and start creating a project file that we can use to generate our scene. Okie dokie day. All right, I'm going to create a new project. And FYI, when you're creating a new project, this is an important element that folks overlook all the time. Okay, the location of your project directory. I like to make it easier on myself and just hit the Set button. That way I get this cool little popover. It's going to give me the ability to interactively choose the location of my project directory with the standard Mac OS Finder. And let's just call this Pat's Game. And I'm going to put it right on my desktop. Save, and I'm going to also import in my character controller, the light cookies, the light flares, and let's do this. I'm going to do skyboxes. And I'm also going to do terrain assets and water. There we go. Let's create the project. And it's going to go to town. It's going to generate that project directory for me. So it's working on the back end right now, hopefully, unless I hit cancel on accident. Nope, there it goes. It's doing it. Give it a good beat or so. Bum, 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 bum. Slowly but surely it's working. When you import in a lot of these assets, give it some time to really to think about it. I mean, there's a lot of assets and a lot of things that is loading in at the exact same moment in time. That's it's just going to take some time to do that. All right, here we go. Woo! Perfect. This is going to be great. Okay. So let's take a look-see at what we need to do over here to get the result that we're after. Okay. So welcome to working inside of Unity. As a reminder, the first thing that I always do is I save my scene. Okay. You never want to be working inside of Unity outside of that scene file structure. So just make it first. And get into that muscle memory. You can see over here in my project bin that level 01's already been created. Okay, that's a good habit to get into. All right, so let's import in that project file that I just created a moment ago. Okay, how do I do that? How do I import in an asset into Unity? Yeah, you can right-click, import new asset. That's fine. You can also go to the top of the screen where it says Asset and choose Import New Asset. You're literally doing the exact same thing. So I'm going to go find my Collada file chilling on my desktop and import it in. All right, and aha, there looks like everything is imported in the way I would like it to import in. A couple of things about the import procedure that I like to kind of remind people and suggest and encourage when creating the muscle membrane. Let's generate colliders, okay? A couple other things that you might want to do under the rig section. Oh, please don't crash on me. Oh, wait, no, it's a little popover must have popped up. Apply the settings, sorry. You know, I always turn the rig for static elements to off. That way you won't get that avatar symbol showing up inside of your project directory, okay? If you're importing things in here and you see a little avatar symbol, that's being generated by this rig tab under the import settings. So I almost always turn it to none, obviously on buildings, because you know they don't require any sort of rig unless you need your buildings to move, which is, you know, that'd be cool, that'd be fun. Unfortunately, you can't delete portions, you know. Prefab's part of your hierarchy. This render section, this is the actual shader tree inside of Modo coming through. And you know, I wish I could just delete it, but you can't. You can't. So it's something that's kind of annoying, but it is what it is. But luckily for us, we can still go in and independently control the placement of these two children mesh prefabs inside of our entire hierarchy here. And this is why working inside of a multi-mesh environment in Modo is totally cool, right? Because we could easily just import one or all of these elements into, well, I guess we have to import all of them, excuse me. But we still get to control each one of these independently in the scene view, okay? So I can move this guy around, I can make it bigger, I can make it smaller. You know, I don't want to scale it, but you can still get a little bit of control over this, okay? Which is great. So the mesh items that show up inside of Unity are going to be available to us, excuse me. It takes me a good 30 seconds for my brain to remember the keyboard shortcuts in Unity in comparison to the keyboard shortcuts over in Modo. There we go. All right. Each one of these came with their own material, and just to visually separate them, let's give them a color. I'll make the pagoda red because I can. The Pharaoh building will be green because I can. Fantastic. Red building and a green building. Excellent. All right. Let's do this. Let's put a ground plane in. Assets, create. I'm just going to do a plane, excuse me. Game object, create other plane. Wait a minute, hold on a sec. I just saw something that I'm not used to seeing. Game object, create other. What is this quad? Is it just a single polygon? Wrong key. Interesting. I wonder what that's all about. Yeah, it's this thing right there, and I wonder what that's all about. I really have no idea. I wonder if it's something that's the foundation for a texture or a GUI element. Don't know. Interesting. Anyways, let's go back into my object and start rocking and rolling. I want to import in I'm going to create a plane for my little town to sit on, and that looks fantastic. Okay, and I'm going to utilize these standard assets. Specifically the character controller. There we go. Now, what can you tell me immediately about the size of my object? The character controller is gigantic in comparison to my buildings, right? It is. It's really big. And this is one of the issues that we have to work with inside of any transfer of information between applications, is understanding the scale factor. And let me show you a really cool setting in here that will help. Let's compare the size of this over in Modo to the size of what we're getting here. If I select, you know, just those polygons there for our pagoda, excuse me, it's not going to be gigantic. Okay, it is 63 millimeters tall. That's not very big. If we were to put a 1 unit cube into the mix, yeah, that's actually kind of what I was expecting to see. So our buildings in every sense are just itty bitty, right? This is a 1 unit cube over here, and our buildings are teeny tiny in comparison to that 1 meter cube. Okay, so we can fix this if we want over in Unity, and it's something that may or may not work. I've forgotten if it's going to automatically update inside of Unity, but we can scale we can scale our assets as they come in, okay? Notice that I have the root of this entire model file selected inside of my scene, and check it out. There's a scale factor here. Now, so I can make these things bigger or smaller upon import, okay? Because I don't want to have to go in and scale them manually within the viewport, because that's a transform, that's an edit to the transform channels that I don't necessarily want to adopt. What I'm trying to avoid here is going into here and then scaling it like that. You know, putting that like at 100 by 100 by 100. Okay, I'm trying to avoid that if possible. Okay, because that is kind of right there, right about the scale value that I want in relationship to the size of my first-person controller. Now, I want to kind of underscore this, and this is an important element. We don't want to scale our first-person controller prefab, or our third-person controller prefab for that matter. Has anyone experienced why not? Yeah, right. The movement and the jump and the run for our first-person controller prefab has been designed to work with the current size of that prefab. So if you make that object bigger or smaller, and what I'm talking about specifically is, of course, that little guy, that little capsule. If you make it bigger or smaller, you're going to directly affect how fast your character is going to run and how high your character is going to be able to jump. These are elements that we generally just don't want to have to go in and change. That's the whole idea behind these prefabs, is that we can use these presets to very quickly populate our scene with some parameters that we don't have to monkey with. I'd much rather change the size of the model versus changing the size of our character, okay, or of our first-person controller prefab. Now, I used the transform channel here. I changed the scale of my buildings to a value of 100%. I don't want to do that, okay? That's dangerous, because those transformations in the scale channel could have an influence on a number of other things down the line, downstream as it's called. Any sort of script that we apply to our buildings here could be influenced negatively by the inclusion of those transformation channels, okay? So I'd much rather scale things on import. And let's just take a look at that scale factor once again. Now, I'm going to scale these guys up by 100. Let's see what we get. Yes, 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 yes. That's excellent. That's what we want. This is looking much, much, much better now. Okay, if we look at the Pat's Town, you can still see that the scale values are at 1. Rock and roll. This is what we want. So if we need to make things bigger, change that scale factor in your project tab. That's the way to really correctly change the size of these things. In addition, you're also gaining a common denominator that we can use to apply to a number of different imported elements into the scene. Okay, so now that I kind of have this where I want it to go, clearly the plane that I created earlier is way too small. And maybe we grab my little pagoda here and we move it around. There we go, something like that. Aha, awesome. Let's grab my first-person controller prefab. There we go, woo. Let's just grab that. I don't want my main camera. Come on, fingers. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. And I'll move my main camera or my first-person controller prefab way off over there. Let's just hit the F key to look at it real quick. Let's get this kind of dialed where it needs to go. Let's play our game, see what we get. Thinking about it. There we go. Now I'm live. And the size of these buildings are kind of where I'd expect them to be. Okay, we get the collision information on all these buildings. Awesome. Okay, now just visually looking at my scene here, what's missing? A light. Yeah, don't forget about these lights. The lights are an important element. So let's go ahead and add a light, game object, create other. Let's do a directional light. Aha. Looking good, okay? Looking really, really, really good. And I'm also going to turn off hard shadows. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and play this. It's going to think about it. There's the shadows. Awesome. Looking good. All right. Now, one of the problems that we ran into, or the problems that we're currently running into, is the fact that all of these polygons are being illuminated by that directional light, okay? There's not any textures on them. So are we really getting a nice separation between all of the different elements on the pagoda here visually? No. Whenever it's in shadow, there's not enough information just on the straight polygons to provide those visual details that establish the interior shading values of those polygons. What I'm trying to say here is that you need a texture. Okay? Most things inside of Unity need a texture in order for this entire song and dance to work. Okie dokie. Oops. Looking pretty cool though, right? So let's just travel over to CG Textures real fast, and I'm just going to grab something that's very, very simple. Okay. Let's do this. I'm going to go as soon as we... Let's just do a stone texture. Go. That'll work. It'll be kind of weird looking, but that's all right. Not the first time. And yeah, it's going to be way too noticeable. Let's go into like bricks, cinder blocks, brown. Here we go. Now we're talking. Let's download that one, and let's just bring them in. Let's get them into our system. Import new asset. I'm going to go find those two things that I just grabbed. Not with this, not in this method. Okay, so let me show you as a reminder. Let me show you how to do it. If you want to do multiples at the exact same time, you can do it, but you just can't do it using the import asset right-click function. What you have to do is go find your project directory. In my case, there it is. There's my project directory. And if you physically go to the assets folder, you can drag and drop as many things you want into the asset folder, and it will import it into your project once you refresh Unity. So once I click inside the Unity application frame, you can see it's importing all those assets that I just dragged in. So that's the fastest way to get multiple items in at the exact same time. Okay, so let's make the pagoda have the brick texture. There we go. And the pharaohs building is going to get the concrete floor. All right. However, we have a little bit of an issue. It's still green. It's still really green and really red. Problem. Frustrating. I don't like that. How do I resolve this problem? Or does anyone know why it's doing what it's doing? Yeah, there's supposed to be a brick texture on this building right now, and I'm not seeing it, like, at all. Does anyone know why? You said you have to manually import the reference materials. Those are in. The materials are already in. Yeah, if you look at, it's getting cut off by the side of our projector here, but you can see on the actual pagoda item, that brick texture is in the image well. Yeah. Check it out. Look what I have selected. I have the asset in the hierarchy. So what I'm viewing here in my inspector are all the parameters that are currently applied to my pagoda. It's white. It's the color of that material. That color value, when working with the diffuse texture map, and let me zoom in a little bit here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. It's getting cut off. See how the color's red? This is when the color is any other color than white, it's going to tint your texture, okay? And when you have the saturation values, as I have, set to 100%, it's going to overwrite your diffuse texture amount. Bummer, huh? So this is what we want to do. We just want to return those colors back to white, and all will be right and well in the world. So let me just physically manually change the color. We'll put it back to white, and let's see. Now, the other thing that I didn't even think about, and it's causing a problem here, is that I have no idea if there's any UVs on these buildings. There probably are not. Yeah, there we go. There's the green tinted, and that's probably, I know that's having an impact, the lack of UVs. But at least we're getting the basic color from the texture map applied to our objects within the scene. So UVs on these bad boys would go a long, long way. All right, let's play the game, see where we're at. It's not going to be too much better considering, yeah, it's not going to be too much better, but it's a little bit better. All right. So that's going to cause some problems for you guys, not having textures on your geometry, because it's going to become an issue, a big issue, actually. Okay. Let's see what happens, and to kind of further illustrate this, let's put. I'm going to create a new material. I want to create a material for the ground. That way, we can see the effects of this. Because if you look at the way the shadows are being casted on the ground, you know, we're not getting any detail in there. It's just going almost kind of immediately to black. So if I create a new material, so I'll go create material. Let's give this a new name. Let's just call this ground. Ground texture, sure, why not? Okay, and instead of ground texture, we'll just put bricks large in there. And then check it out. I'm going to assign this material to my ground just by dragging and dropping on it. Awesome. Okay, cool. Now, this is not exactly tiling the way I would want it to tile. How do I repeat that tile over and over and over again to get the correct scale of the photograph within the geometry? Yeah, tiling. Let's just put this like 5 by 5. Yeah, maybe even 7 by 7. That's pretty cool. Yeah, there we go. And that's what we're after. We want to be able to see how, the moment we put that diffuse texture map in there, we're starting to see detail within the ground here. That's kind of exactly what we want. Okay. So just make sure that all of your objects have diffuse texture information on it. Otherwise, that directional light, and all lights instead of moto, are going to, you know, give you that kind of almost pure darkness on the inside. Kind of makes sense? Yeah, I apologize. I forgot that these buildings didn't have UVs. Here, shoot. Well, let's do this real fast. To kind of, let's just work with the pharaohs or the pagoda real fast. Let's just make UVs real fast for the Japanese building. I'm not going to do all of it, obviously, but you know, most of the stuff is pretty cubic. And using my lightning skills that I have, I can make these really, really quickly. Sound effects are required. Life is so much better, trust me, when there's sound effects. Made a mistake when I UV'd it, but that's okay. Let's just do fit UVs. There's for that one. Let's unhide. Let's just do this next one. There we go. Unwrap. Excuse me. Gotta select these bottom edges. Now the unwrap tool will work. Boom. Now these guys in here, these might be a little bit more pain in the rear end. I'm just going to turn my trackball rotation off. Change my GL background to none. And I don't want to see the grid or the work plane. There we go. Now I can work with some speed and accuracy. I'm just going to do the outsides. I'm not going to do the insides. Control-Shift-A. Whoa. Control-Shift-A. Project from view. Boom. That one's done. Okay, pop quiz. Look at my mesh on the screen. Now I'm working with this. I'm working with geometry that someone else gave me. I didn't make these buildings here. Look at my geometry. What's happening?
It's
It's ugly stuff. How do we fix that? What is this ugly stuff? Let's do some investigation. It's all triangulated, but that's not why we're getting the ugly stuff. Okay, so these are the polygons that we're working with here. So there it is from the right. Still ugly from that view. Let's look at it from the front. They're all flat, okay? Perfectly flat. So why in the world are we getting this ugly stuff in there? Yeah, it's the root of the problem is that it's not coming from quads, okay? But that's still not the problem.
Could be that there's more than one poly at the same spot.
Let's find out. More than one poly at the same spot. What's a fast, easy way of checking that? Hit the tab key is a fast, easy way. If there's more than one polygon in the same spot, those areas would not be subdividing. What we're seeing here is a surface direction issue. The computer doesn't know which direction the normal for those triangles are facing, okay? The normals are out of alignment with the orientation of the surface, okay? We need to fix this. Is there what's the fast, easy way of fixing this? Mesh cleanup. Mesh cleanup is the silver bullet in this particular situation. Whenever the OpenGL window is giving you feedback like that, I just instinctually just do mesh cleanup. Okay, and one of the things, yep, there it is. Look, 31 face normals fixed. Woo! And now our geometry is looking the way it needs to look. Okay, it's better. We still got some issues, but you know what? It's good enough. Huh? Yeah, run it again. I do that a lot, actually, to be honest with you. Most of the days, whenever I run mesh cleanup, I don't stop running mesh cleanup until it says nothing to be done. And really the root of this problem is that it's just horribly triangulated. And I mean horribly triangulated. That's okay. We're just going to project from view. And we'll keep going. You guys would never, ever, ever triangulate something like this. You guys know better, right? Every semester when I run the historical buildings through the lab, I always get inspired to rebuild all of the buildings properly. Because this is horrible. Project from view, boom. And you know what? I think that'll be good enough. So we have some UV information for the first, the first portion of our little pagoda here. For the first two ground planes and then these outside walls. That's good enough. So here's the cool thing. I'm gonna export. Let me just make sure I got a UV map. I don't have two UV maps on this bad boy. I don't. Okay, great. I'm gonna export as, and I'm gonna overwrite the asset that's in my assets directory. Okay, I'm gonna call it the exact same thing. I'm gonna overwrite the file that's currently in my asset directory, and then when I go back over into Unity, everything will update, okay? That's one of the really cool, powerful features of working inside of Unity, is that it's going to continue to work with those elements. All right, so let's see here. Yeah, check it out. And you can see that now the brick pattern has been applied to the first floor, the first couple of layers of my building, which is cool. Let me walk over to it. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So this is a good illustration of why we want to have diffuse texture maps on all of our geometry. Okay, check it out. Look physically at my screen. On the interior of this building, it just looks like a big black nothing, right? None of those polygons are receiving any vertex illumination from the light source, okay? It's all in shadow. So it's basically not drawing any, or it's not shading, any of those polygons. If there's diffuse texture information associated with those polygons, at the very least, we'll still get the shadows that we want, but we'll still be able to see the details of those areas. Okay, this is good. This is very good, actually. All right. Now this thing looks a little bit more realistic. Here, let's do this. I want to stop my game, and I'm going to overwrite the material, the pagoda one. I want to put my concrete floor one on pagoda. There we go. And let's play it now. See what we get. Yeah. Much better. Clear separation between all the planes within inside my model. Cool. Alrighty, right. Okay, all right, so let's talk for a second about some new things that we haven't had an opportunity to discuss yet. Now, our models are looking pretty great, but we need to go in and start rounding out some of the other features within our scene to get the illusion that we want. One of the biggest challenges that we have right now is our environment feeling like it's floating inside of this gigantic blue bubble, right? Doesn't exactly create a compelling illusion, does it not? Does it look like we're outside here? No, not really, not even a little bit. It looks horrible. It looks horrible. So we need to populate that area with a very, very specific type of element. We're going to put what's called a skybox in the background of our scene. It's really easy to implement a skybox. However, there are a couple little hitches in there that we need to look at. Okay, it's not difficult, but we need to understand and know what we're doing. First thing that's imperative is to understand what is a skybox. Okay, so when I created my project here, I imported in the standard assets package called skyboxes, which contain a whole series of skyboxes that ship with Unity. Now, skyboxes are more than just spherical reflection maps on the inside of our environment. They're a lot more than that. If we select each one of these skyboxes, and let's just find a real representative one, overcast. Okay, you can left click on it. You can see the kind of clouds back there, which is pretty cool. However, if you look at the inspector, these are not single images, okay? It's not I'm sorry, my projector is cutting it off. These are not one, reflection map that we're used to working with over in Modo, right? This is actually, I think 6 different flat textures that have been applied to a very specific material, and then the computer is warping and bending all of those materials, all of those textures into a sphere, okay? So it's more than the environment maps than we're used to working with over in Modo. They're very, very special. Finding skyboxes on the web, if you're not happy with these, is not impossible, but it does take a little bit of effort. Okay? They're available, they're out there, but we got to go find it. Okay? All right, so we have to have skyboxes created within our scene, and also please note that the shader type is different. This is not, it's under, what was under? Render effects. Render effects, and then skybox. And there's also skybox cubed as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply one of these skyboxes into our scene. Cool, I'm going to use Sunny 2. The way to get skyboxes into our environment here is really quite easy, but it's also a little bit unintuitive, unfortunately. Okay. To get our skybox, we have to go into our edit menu at the top of the scene. And then down here we have render settings. Okay, render settings. Once you click on render settings, check it out. Our inspector is going to bring to the surface a number of parameters that's going to change how the computer is going to draw a lot of background elements for us. Specifically, check it out. Skybox material. Haha. If we click on the little target, it'll automatically scan your entire Unity project directory, and it's going to find all of the materials that are currently existing within inside of your scene. So note that it's picking up the pagoda material. Okay, so I just loaded the pagoda material into my skybox. And you can actually see what happens when you try to load a square image into the skybox. It just does not work, okay? So I'm going to go back in and do sunny 2. Aha! There you go. Now, once we orbit around our environment, you can see that we're creating the illusion that this thing is in an actual environment. You can change them. Eerie skybox, creepy. Nighttime skybox, didn't really work. There's nighttime, okay? One of the things that you have to be careful with whenever you're working with skyboxes is generating the wrong illusion in the foreground. Now, our background, our skybox, looks as though it's nighttime, right? But what does the foreground of our environment look like? Like it's not nighttime, it's in the middle of the afternoon. So you have to be very aware of this. The skybox is just going to flood the background of your scene with an image. It's not automatically going to change the lighting setups within inside of your environment to match the skyboxes. If anyone from Unity is listening to my live stream, you need to figure out a way to do that, because that would be awesome to have a whole series of like preset environments that you can just drag and drop into your scene and everything will update. That would be bueno. Okay. Yeah, you have to go through and just dial everything back in. We're just going to make it easy for us today, and we'll keep everything in the daylight. All right, so skyboxes. It really is just that easy to add a simple little skybox within your scene. Now, you guys are probably, your skyboxes aren't going to be probably as apparent as my skybox is right now. I don't have a lot of buildings inside of my scene. It's just kind of a big, flat, open, empty plane. So the apparent nature of our skybox is so much larger than we have in when there's trees and varying terrain planes and all that jazz. It's it won't be as noticeable. That horizon line way off in the distance won't be as noticeable. Okay. Now let's do something crazy here. I'm going to go in and just zoom into my little environment, and I'm going to get all up in next to my Japanese building here. Now, I don't like the fact that the interior of my Japanese building is dark. So I'm going to add in another light. Game object, create other, and I'm going to add a point light into the mix. And there's my point light. FYI, check this out. Pop quiz. Can everyone see these little handles on the interior of our move tool? What do those represent? Does anyone remember or know? They're kind of cool. A lot of folks that overlook these little cubes on the interior of our move, and they even show up on they show up on move. They may not show up on scale. But these are coplanar handles. If you ever use the move tool over Moto, you remember those little discs? Exact same idea. Okay. So if I was to grab this little green guy, I'm going to be able to move this light around our scene on the X and the Z axis only. I'm not going to be transforming along the Y. Coplanar handles. I get to move these elements along 2 axes at the exact same time. Great way to very, very, very quickly move things around your scene without having to worry about adjusting their height or whatever axes that you're trying not to influence this element within. Now, point lights are pretty neat. I like using point lights a lot. A little bit different, however, from that of a directional light. The directional light is just a never-ending plane of light coming from a single direction within our scene. The point light, however, is kind of like a light bulb. Okay, so this yellow widget on the outside is going to influence the radius or the range of this light within our three-dimensional environment, which is very, very neat. FYI, over in your inspector, you can also change this value by left-clicking and dragging on the word range or numerically entering it into that input field. Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to put this point light kind of up in the ceiling here. Aha, looking pretty good. Let's play our game now and see what the interior of our little Japanese pagoda is going to look like. All right, there it is, looking pretty good. Cool. So now we can very easily see all of the polygons on the interior of our house. What if I wanted to have a point light the exterior of our house. Like we're making some sort of illusion that there is some sort of lantern outside of my house. Okay, let's check out this for a second. Let's add another point light into the mix. Game object, create other. Well, let's do a spotlight this time. Spotlights behave identically to the way a spotlight would behave over in Modo. Okay, you can actually see it generating the illusion down there. Let's do a little coplanar adjustment. And here, we'll do this. Maybe what we'll do is we'll bring it up some. I'll rotate it. Also, don't forget that you can change your action handles behaviors by clicking on this button. Really great. Right now, it's kind of a little intuitive, and it's frustrating for me. Right now, we're using the local orientation of this light to determine the placement of its action handles, even though it says global, which is kind of strange. So now we're working on the global orientation of the XYZ handles. So we can change it to local if we wanted to. All right, so let's just get this kind of something maybe like that. I don't know. Let's go to local. And let's change the size of our spotlight to something like that. There we go. Now it looks like there's some sort of light or lantern up at the top shining into our house. Cool. Let's play our game, see what we get. All right. Pretty cool. So we can add lights into our scene. However, at times, these lights are going to produce a couple little problems for us, okay? Sometimes these lights will interactively turn on and off, and that can be a little bit of a problem. Now, whenever lights turn on and off, the first thing that I do is I start troubleshooting. Sometimes these lights are just, you get to a certain distance within the scene, and the computer's just not going to draw the effect of those lights. And let's see. Yeah, you can kind of see that my shadows are turning off now. Let's see, will I be able to go away from that? Nope, it's always going to stay on. Okay. Other times, you'll need to go and just reposition the light within the scene. It could be being obstructed by an existing polygon. So lights are going to have to tweak. Okay. Check this out. The last thing that I want to talk about today is light mapping, and it's really kind of neat. Light mapping is really fun. You know, we don't want to. Yeah. Okay. Check this out. Let's do this. I want to go grab my spotlight, and I want to change its color to red. Cool. Okay, we're getting some awesome shadows in there, and I'm going to grab my little point light, and I'm going to change its color to, oh, I don't know, blue, creepy blue. Now the inside of our house is blue. Okay. Let's play our game, see what we get. Yep, okay, red and blue, like that's expected. Okay. But what about the shadows? What about shadows being cast from these red and blue lights? Okay. Now, if I had, let's say, a box on the interior of my level. There's my little box. I just added it in. Let me grab the move tool. Add this in here. And I'm going to put this box kind of in the middle of my floor. So this is going to be kind of like a little set piece. Something like that. There we go. Now, right now, yeah, no shadows being cast or created from that box, right? The only light that is casting shadows is our directional light. And in the free version of Unity, we only get one light source that will cast shadows, and it's always going to be a directional light. The free version of Unity is not going to allow us to generate shadow information from point lights or spotlights, okay? That's one of the cool things that you get with the Pro version. So check this out. We can, if we wanted to kind of further illustrate that, let's just jump in. And I forgot to enable shadows. So let me stop this for a second. And let's go to my point light. Let's turn on hard shadows for my point light. And for my spotlight, hard shadows, okay? And it's giving us a little error. It's saying only directional lights have shadows and forward rendering. Real-time shadows for point and spotlights require Unity Pro. Okay? Bummer. However, we can circumnavigate this problem by employing something called light mapping. And light mapping is basically going to bake shadow information for us. Okay? It's an entire system that's built on top of the Unity rendering engine. It's pretty neat, actually. They've licensed some pretty awesome technology to bring this baking engine into Unity, and it's really neat. Okay? It does require us to go through and look at some new interface elements. Okay? It's very easy, but it's new stuff. Let's check it out real fast. There's a couple different setup things that we have to do in order for the light mapping system to work inside of Unity. So before I even open up the interface, we have to set up our scene for light mapping. So the two things that we got to do first is clearly go into all the lights that we want shadow information to be generated from and enable shadows on all of those lights. That's step numero uno. So I've done the point light and the spotlight already. Spotlight being the red guy, the point light being the blue guy. I still need to go in, well, I don't necessarily have to go into my directional light because I get the directional light shadows for free. Those are real time. So we got to go in and enable shadows or turn on shadows for all of our point lights and spotlights within the scene. So that part done. The next thing we got to do, and this is the part that's really going to get you kind of you're going to forget to do this, okay? We need to go in after we turn on shadows for our lights and tag all of our mesh objects as static. So if we want to have shadows be generated for the box and for the building that it's currently sitting within, we have to go in and tell the computer that those elements are static and to bake shadow information on the polygons associated with those elements, okay? So I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to go grab my Japanese building. And the way we do it, it's pretty easy. And I apologize, I know it's getting cut off. I'm so sorry. Right there, you can just barely see the check mark for it. See this is static there? It's in the upper right-hand corner of your inspector. That's the button that you need to press. That's the button that's going to tag this element as static and alarm it to the, or just assign it to the, start it on. Actually, this little pull down. Oh, cool. This is great. This little pull down thing is new. Awesome. So just leave everything at the defaults. Okay, so it's static. And this is what's going to alarm the light mapping system to generate shadows from this element. So I'm going to do it for my Japanese building, and I'm also going to do it for my cube. Just want that to be static as well. So we've enabled lights on all of the, or we've enabled shadows on all of our lights. We've assigned that static tag to the elements in our scene that we want to generate shadows from. Now we can light map, okay? So if we go into the window down here, this little button is gonna give us access to the light mapping interface. Light mapping, okay? And we're gonna get this new little popover. Now, there's a couple things in here that we want to make sure that we look at before we just kind of go boop, okay, and put this bad boy in. We want to make sure that we go into our lights. Why isn't that updating? Oh, I'm sorry. They have changed this ever so slightly in this version of Unity. This is a filter. We wanted to look at all the lights, okay? So we wanted to look at all the lights, all the meshes, and we wanted to look at all the terrains. This is a great way for us to tell the computer what to light map. Maybe we only want to have our terrain be light mapped, okay? Well, I want everything in this particular situation, and so do you. The thing that we want to kind of go look at are our baking settings. And let me just do this. Quality is set to high, ambient occlusion. Now, some of this information is not going to take in the free version of Unity, or it didn't used to do it. I haven't actually done it in this version yet. In the Pro version of Unity, you can actually start to calculate global illumination with this bounces section, and you get really, really, really nice final gathering effect of those light rays within our scene, and it's pretty fantastic. We want to use it in the forward rendering. Well, is that going to mess it up? Let's find out. That's a new button, so we'll find out if that's going to have an impact on our scene. And the rest of this looks pretty fantastic. Okay. And then when you're done, just bake scene. Now, we don't have any maps right now, which is why this area is showing up blank. In a minute, once we bake our scene, it's going to show you the physical image maps that it's going to create. So let's bake it. All right. Now, we got to be patient. This is going to take a minute or so. In the bottom right-hand corner of your interface, you're going to get this little status bar, and it's going to bake all of your assets, okay? It's going to go through, and it's going to analyze all your geometry, it's going to analyze your textures, your lights, and it's going to generate a new texture file for you, a brand new texture file for you. And it's going to overlay that texture file on top of all your geometry. So it's doing some pretty high-tech thinking right now. This is going to take a little bit. As you can see, it's taking some time to generate all the light maps for my objects in my scene, and I only have 3 objects within my scene. So it's going to require some patience as we go through this process, but the results should be pretty cool, okay? Done, done, done. This is like the last thing that you... Yeah. Yeah.
I'm doing a little testing along with it, and when I said big scene, it's that there was nothing big.
There was nothing to bake. Okay.
And I set the item back here as static, and it said.
Did you turn your lights to exclude shadows?
Yes, I did.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I'll say no. Marked as static. Okay, hit OK. The problem is, go into your item list, your hierarchy.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. This or
Your hierarchy. So the clock tower is which element?
the one that's static.
Okay. You may need to go to the parent in this particular one, that one, and mark it as static as well. There we go. Say yes to children.
Okay.
Okay. Now do me a favor. Go through all those elements in your scene.
Gotcha.
And now they're all static. You can leave them as static. That's fine.
Okay.
Try it now. Try baking it.
You got it. Cool. 1 second. It's right window. Okay. Cool. Let's see.
Light mapping.
This big,
Object all.
Okay. Cool.
There it goes.
Cool.
It's thinking about it.
Thank you. Yeah. I see. Thank you.
Ah, looks like mine's done. Fantastic. Let me zoom out for a moment and see what we've crafted. Yeah, check it out. So we've actually created image maps, new image maps that are disconnected from all of our model files. Okay, so we can close this window down. And yeah, that didn't work so hot. Let's play the game. Sometimes it gives you a false read. Yeah, it's actually making the shadows. Yeah, but not well. Now, most of my problems in here are being generated from, I think, really poor UV information on my object. Yeah. However, we are getting a shadow for our little cube, so it did kind of work. This is the great thing about working inside of Unity, and I'm saying this sarcastically, is that they give you a lot of technology. However, at times, you're going to need to refine it a little bit to get the results that you want. So let's go back into our light mapping overview window and look at some of these guys in here and see if we can figure out what we need to do to generate accurate light or more accurate light maps within inside of our scene. Okay. All right, let's do it real fast. Let's go back into light mapping, and this time I want to say use and forward rendering, and that appears to have given me a certain degree of what I'm looking for. Let's go back into my light mapping window here, and let's do lock atlas and bake it again. and then we sit and wait. So there's two things I need to have. I need to generate like a rendering song and then like a baking song to play while I'm cooking, if you will. Quick thing, if you ever see this down here in the console, see what it says, there are two audio listeners. This is coming from the first-person controller prefab and the main camera inside of your hierarchy. You can generally ignore that. It's not going to be the end of the world. Or if you really wanted that thing to go away, you can go find the main camera, the audio listeners that are associated with the main camera and just delete it. Or turn their little checkbox on and off. Oh, it's getting faster now. It's baking away, it's baking away, it's baking away. Oh, here it goes. Here it goes. It's always exciting when it loads in the baked light mapped information, and it looks like I'm getting a very, very similar result. I don't know why I'm getting those kind of weird corners there. Let's go back into the light mapping window and see what we can see. The cool thing about this is that you can actually double click on the light map and it will open it up in preview. And you can see exactly what the computer is driving here. And now that's interesting to me. Why is it getting, yeah, the texture atlas that we created or that was created for this didn't do a really hot job in this. And I think most of it's due to the fact that I don't have UVs for the rest of my building, and it's just totally destroying it. Hopefully this won't be as big of an issue for you guys, because clearly all the buildings that you construct for your final project are going to have fantastic UV maps. My little Japanese pagoda clearly does not. All right. Okay, let's keep cruising here. There's one final thing that I want to talk about today, and then I'll let you guys continue working on your projects. If we zip around our level as is, you can see that we're going to pretend that this is looking pretty good. We're going to ignore the botched light map that we have on our little pagoda, but it's working. Okay, we're getting shadow information where we want it. Okay, rock and roll. The baking process kind of did its thing. But right now our game only exists inside of Unity. Okay, I need to get my game out of Unity and into a format that I can share with as many people as I want across the world. I need to get it into an executable file, something that I can install on a Mac, a PC, a mobile device, the Xbox One, or the PS4. Okay, this is called building your game, where we take all the information that's currently existing inside of our hierarchy and we export it. We get it out of Unity and into a universal file format that can be played. Last week when we were going through the details of our final project, you saw this in action when I was double-clicking on those executable files and launching them inside of on my computer. Let me show you how to work with these. They're pretty cool. And it's really easy to build your game. Okay, the first thing that we got to do is go into our build settings, and you can find all of our build settings by going to the top of the screen where it says File and Build Settings. Okay, you're going to get this little popover. And right now, we're going to start at the top and then work our way down towards the bottom. Right now, it doesn't have any scenes within inside of the game, and this is why having those Unity scene files is so important. The levels inside your game, because those are the elements that are required for us to export our game out there into the real world. So there's a couple things that you can do. You can do add current, or you can drag and drop the scene files from your project bin over into this window. So I'm going to add the currently open scene file, boom, and it shows up right there. It's even going to preserve the name of your scene file in the list of scenes to build. So that's the first step. We're going to physically load a scene. The second step is to choose a platform that we want to build our game for. And as you can see from the list here, there's a nice, pretty much all the major ones are supported, which is awesome, which is very cool. And it's my understanding that they also have Xbox One and PS4 support already in the most recent version of Unity. I believe 4.3 has those little things in here. Now, to gain access into those worlds, I think there is a small cost associated with it, but I'll let you continue to explore. Actually, let's just go take a look at it. I'm curious now if it, because I know they changed their licensing scheme a little bit in 4.3. Unity3D.com. And then once we go into the web page, let's just go to the buy section. And let's see. Windows, Windows Pro, Mac, iOS. See, this is cool. They didn't used to do this, and I think this is really neat. You can, with the free version, or wait, no, this is Unity Pro. I apologize. Yeah, they've changed it ever so slightly. But I believe in the free version, you can do the iOS basic and Android basic build for free. I believe. It used to be a little bit more illustrative. But you can add on, like if you wanted to really make an iOS game, you can buy the extension that will allow you to do that, which is pretty neat. Or Android. Let's see, pricing. I'm not sure. Yeah, they have changed this a little bit. You may, in order to get access to the Xbox One build and the PS4 build options, you may have to be an official developer for those platforms and have a developer, a dev kit. Yeah, Unity Pro for consoles. Here we go. You have to contact them directly, and then they'll start working on it, working with you on it. Because you need a dev license, I think, in order to build for those platforms. Yeah, the dev kits are expensive. There's nothing that says you can't build your game with the existing tools, but to be able to play it on an Xbox or a PS4, you have to have a dev kit, which gives you root access to all the operating system for those game consoles. You don't get that just straight out of the box. The dev kit that you have to purchase is not inexpensive from Microsoft and Sony. And then once you have your dev kit hardware, it's kind of like an unlocked Xbox One and an unlocked PS4. That's kind of what it is. And then once you have those, I believe you have to contact Unity, and they'll give you the plugin for Unity that will allow you to build games for those consoles. Because ideally what you want to be able to do at the end of your development cycle is to be able to pick up your Xbox, hit the build settings, and then play the game on the actual Xbox hardware. Yeah. I have no idea how much a dev kit is. Many tens of thousands of dollars is my understanding. Yeah, no, I'm not joking. I think, I think a dev kit, I remember someone saying that an Xbox 360 dev kit was like $20,000. Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. There's a reason you don't see an independent game movement happening in the console wars right now, because it's just expensive to play in that arena. It really is. Yeah, the mobile industry is where you want to be. I personally believe that the console era is coming to an end. I think that this is probably the last generation of consoles that we'll see. Yeah, Xbox One and PS4, I think this is the end of the console era. If you look at the gaming power, performance, and just widespread acceptance of the iPad and the iPhone, that's an indicator as to where we're going. Why not? It does have a controller. It does have a controller now. Yeah, a lot of people don't realize this. The iPhone actually has a controller, and they announced the API for a controller like about 6 months ago, and they didn't really announce it. They just said if you looked through the support documentation, you found that they did controller support. And then what was it? I think Logitech just came out with one. Let's see if I can find it. I think it was on Mac Rumors. See if I've forgotten the name of it. But it basically turns your iPhone into a gigantic, almost kind of like a Vita. Okay, I'm going to find it. And shoot, proof's in the pudding that Apple is making a move in the gaming world. They just bought the company that developed the Xbox Kinect. Yeah, there it is, Prime Sense. Okay, let me see if I can find there's a really cool image of it. This was earlier in the week, last week I think. Meh. Okay, let me just do a search on it for iPhone game controller. Yeah, there it is. Yep, that's it. That's one of them. Logitech has one as well that looks almost identical, and you just put your iPhone in the center of it, and now it's a game control. Huh? Yeah. So this is the handwriting's in the wall that the console generation is coming to a close quickly. The Steam box is another great example. You know.
Also the NVIDIA Shield.
Shield, yep. Yeah, mobile, the physical hardware on these mobile devices is getting to the point where they have enough power to do some really great rendering effects. It's not obviously it's not going to be at the same quality level at the moment of what you're seeing coming out of the PS4. I'm not saying that, but I think that in the next 10 years. Shoot, not even 10 years. I think the next 5 years, you're going to see mobile devices being able to produce the same graphic fidelity as something like a PS4. I know, right? Yeah, they're yeah. The ergonomics of it is going to be kind of strange, and well, if you think about it, it's every year the iPhones get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, right? They get thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner, and the hardware features get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. There's some very smart people out there in the world that are figuring out how to miniaturize microprocessors and RAMs and hard drives and batteries, and every year it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I think, if you just if you compare the size of the original iPhone 5 years ago to where we are today, just the thickness of them has, it's like 25% as big. That's remarkable in just 5 years. If that's any indication as to the trajectory that mobile devices are on, it's pretty freaking rad. The iPad is such a great example. The iPad is, I've seen some beautiful images rendered live coming off the iPad. So that's the direction we're headed in, personally. If I had all the money and all the time in the world to be a full-time game developer, I wouldn't be making games for the consoles. I've been making games for mobile devices. Because you can only play a console game when you're at home in front of a television. I look around and I see more people on their phones, on the bus, on light rail, riding their bikes, which is silly, and waiting in line at the registrar's office. So that's the market you want to tap into. Anyways, I have pontificated for a moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a Mac PC Linux standalone build, and I got it already selected. You want to make sure that your target operating system is selected, Mac OS X. Now, if you're working on a Windows machine and you want to be able to turn in all your files for this class, you need to do both, okay? I only ever want a Mac OS X build entirely because I only do Macs. I don't do PCs, okay? And let's just do it real fast. Let's just do build and run, or we'll do build. Let's give it a name. I'll put it on my desktop. Let's call it test. Hit save, and then check it out. It's building our game. Compiling all the scripts. It's evaluating all the elements and the assets that we've created inside of our hierarchy. And there we go. Almost done. All right. And there it is. It's just chilling on my desktop. So let's just double click on it. And now we have an application that's standalone from Unity as soon as it loads. Let's just make it 1920 by 1080. And then powered by Unity. Once that fades out, boom, there's our game level. And everything works and is plugged in. And it's working precisely as it worked over in Unity, but it's now a standalone app. It really is just that easy, which is kind of neat. I'm very pleased with the way Unity has constructed all of their resources. It makes working and creating these standalone game assets simple. Pretty cool, huh? So we've gone from working inside of Unity only to going to generating a standalone game app within just a couple mouse clicks. Yeah?
Will we be learning how to create a splash icon? So like the Unity icon?
We don't get that in the free version, unfortunately.
Oh.
Yeah. In the pro version, you can replace Made with Unity with whatever you want. Yeah. In the free version, they got to have their advertising, you know? They got to advertise to the world that this is made by Unity, so. However, you guys are in such a great position. If you want to do some game development, take advantage of, I shouldn't say this on the live stream, but take advantage of the academic version of Unity Pro. It's really kind of nice. I think it's like $150 a year, and that's pretty good. And it's a full, like, unlocked version of Unity. That's pretty great. That's really great, actually. I'm sorry, can you say that again?
What do you have to do to get the student version?
I think they sell it through the Unity store. I think they also sell it through Journey Ed and Studica. I'm pretty sure I saw it on. I know I saw it on Studica. Studica.com. It's there. .com or .org. Yeah. Oops. Yeah, 120 bucks. That's pretty great. Or you can do $750, which is half off. I know that's kind of seems outrageous, but I know that the $750 version is non-expiring. The $150 is only going to be per year. So I wish I could do the $150 per year. I tried to buy an academic license of Pro. And they say, oh, you're a instructor? Yeah, you have money, so you have to pay us $750. I know, right? Yeah, so that's an option for you guys as well, which I think is pretty cool. Other questions?
It's kind of on topic-ish.
Ish, I love it.
If you're making a game, let's say like if you're making the programming for it, do you have Xbox in mind or
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
at the very start you know exactly which console you're making it for? That way it makes sense.
I think that's a good strategy. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
If you put this on your phone, like how would it work?
Right.
Have a mouse or a keyboard or anything.
Exactly. For the mobile devices, there is an entire library of touch input commands, basically, that will tell all of the functions within the game to respond to, touch this, swipe, pinch and grab, things like that. Yeah. And that's all like 426 stuff. We haven't even scratched the surface of the interactivity part to make our game functional. We're just kind of making like a little walkthrough, if you will, of a level. To make doors open and close, buttons, triggers, things like that, it takes some scripting, some code to make that level of functionality. If you guys want to really serve yourselves going forward in the future, take some programming classes now in preparation for 426 in the fall of next year. Programming is the common denominator. It is the language of game design. Okay. I'd probably take like a Java class or a C++ class. One of those two will serve you well, okay? Object-oriented programming is where you want to hang out for the most part. Programming is the language of game design or video games. Even though we on the art side have been focusing a lot on polygons and textures and UV maps, that's about half of what's required to make a game. The other half, programming, okay? Programming. Yes, sir? Yes, absolutely. It's in the Computer Information and Sciences Department, CISW, and web. That's what the W stands for, is web. Computer Information Science and web. And you can find that in the business division for whatever reason. Yeah. Don't you love the organizational charts of our school? All of the computer programming and computer science and stuff is in the business division. All right, whatever. It should be in advanced technology. That kind of makes sense, right? A little bit? No. Whatevs. Yeah, take some programming classes. If you don't want to take a programming class, or if you're not able to take a programming class, here are a couple of really great resources that will help. I'm a big fan of a website called Code Academy. I think it's .org. In Code Academy, is it Starter League? This does not look right. Let's just do a web search for code. Did I spell Academy wrong? There's a very good Code Academy. Oh, it's .com. I did .org. Okay, I apologize. These guys are really cool. They're going to step you through. It's all free. They're going to step you through learning the basics of learning how to write code right here in the web browser, and that's really kind of neat. And if you mess up, they'll tell you where you messed up. And I've actually gone through a number of their tutorials, and it's good. It's really good stuff. So this is a really nice foundation for you guys to work from going forward in the future. So Code Academy is a fave. I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it 8,000 or 9,000 more times. There's also another great website called Unity 3D Student. Unity3dstudent.com. These guys are really, really cool. I would say 90% of the video tutorials that you'll find on this website are all about coding and learning how to do the programming backend for Unity, and it's really kind of neat. They've filtered all of their content through Essentials, Beginner, and Intermediate, so it's a great place to start. Really a big fan of Unity 3D Student. They do some really cool things in here, and I think it's just masterfully illustrated and presented. So that's a good one to go to. I know I mentioned this last week or the week before, but Unity actually has a first-party Unity.com education site. Unity3d.com/learn. This is a really great resource. Unity is ramping up their educational resources, their first-party, educational resources, and I think there's a lot of good things on here as well. I think specifically there's one area that I would like to direct you guys towards, and that's the tutorial section. It's broken down into basically kind of two areas. We have a whole bunch of categories that describe certain components of the Unity engine itself. Some of these are graphically oriented. Some of them have everything to do with code. The beginning scripting stuff is, I think, really quite fantastic as they go through. I mean, it's all code at this point. And if you were to watch these videos and over the summer break or even over next spring, that would be a step in the right direction to keep the cobwebs from collecting on your Unity skills until 4.26 pops out next fall. Yeah, these are great. I've watched almost all of these, and they're well done, very well done. I like them a lot. And if you really get ambitious, there's these projects, and these projects, this one down here, it is not a beginner project, okay? They say difficulty beginner. No, it is intermediate to advanced. So don't be fooled into thinking it's an easy project. It's not. It's not. When I was at the Game Developers Conference last summer, I even told the dude that made it, I was like, Mark, man, come on, dude. These are not beginner tutorials. I'm not a beginner, and I was getting confused as what in the world you were trying to accomplish in these tutorials. So don't do that one unless you really feel brave. The rollerball one, that's new. I haven't seen that one, so I have no exposure to that. Hopefully that one's geared towards beginners who are brand new to all this stuff. So some great resources that will help you guys over the next couple months. Or you could just fail this class and then retake it again in the spring. That works too. Unfortunately, and I'm not a fan of this, they stripped out the repeatability clause for our program here, so you can't repeat these classes, and for credit, again, you only get one shot at it, so the only way to retake this class is to fail it, which is kind of a bummer.
That really also bothers me with fitness classes.
Yeah, no, PE classes, the PE department, they were up in arms about this, because like, you've just killed our entire division.
Because now you can only take a fitness class
Once, yeah. And it's like, okay, I can't take my half-unit jogging class anymore. I can't take my half-unit boxing class every afternoon anymore. That's kind of a bummer.
So, would you recommend I fail those classes?
That's one way of doing it. That's one way, if you don't mind it taking your GPA taking a hit.
And you're not on financial aid.
If you're not on financial aid, yeah, you can't fail a class if you're on financial aid. You're up a creek if you fail a class on financial aid. Yeah, because then the government's going to come a-knocking and want their money back quickly. Yeah, it's... Anyways, questions about what we've talked about today. Everyone good? Kind of understand? All right, I got about an hour and a half left in class. Let's use this time to continue making forward progress on our final project. I know every single one of you guys have a tremendous amount of work left in front of you, so let's use this time wisely. Okay? Let's hit it. Yes.